I was attempting to stay away from doing a video on what's going on in the UK right now. Not just in the UK, is it? It's happening in other areas as well. Spain, I believe. Tensions are rising. You know, the heat is there, isn't it? And it's not attractive at all. When we're born into trauma, and we are placed into deep programming at an early age, and I think it's a big subject in itself. It's a big subject, and one I'll look to cover sometime in the future. But we're born into trauma, hence removed from our mother quite quickly, injected with all sorts. Our parents are already programmed, and then we're thrown into indoctrination camps, and we're programmed and conditioned, and religious groups, and and it all creates certain perceptions, and your perceptions create your personal reality. Now, when you are born, you're not born with hate in your heart, because when you first arrive here, you're probably closer to your true self than you are right now. Without all that programming that you have to endure over your lifetime, and the different pressures that come into play. So you're not born with hate in your heart by any stretch. Nobody hates another person's skin when they're very young, do they? It's just programming. It's all programming. And right now we're being played, and I mentioned it in the last video, we're being played massively. And this has been going on forever and ever and ever. It's not just now, it's been going on forever. You look into the history books, and you've got plenty of references to religious wars and such like. And human beings are easily manipulated. And we are being manipulated heavily right now.
I like you and have no reason not to.
I like you and have no reason not to.
Hey, did you hear about that magic baby that was born in Bethlehem?
What they want is you in a box and labelled. And because when you're labelled, you protect that label. And it's a great way of creating the illusion that you're something that you're not, and it just creates a perception of something that you not really are, and we forget who we truly are with the labels placed upon us. And there's more labels placed upon people now more than ever, and when you have a label, you start protecting what you perceive is you and your reality. So you perceive yourself to be left wing, for example, or right wing. Your true essence isn't that. It's none of that. And there's a danger that's been happening over the past few years, especially. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video, my previous walk and talk, I come very much from a left-leaning upbringing, and that's what I categorised myself as. I had that perception of myself. Over the past few years, there's been a rise of what I would class as a hard left, the wokeism kind of thing. And because there's a rise of the hard left, there has to be an opposite. So you get the hard left, the far left, if you like, you then get this far right, as they class it. But ultimately, it ends at the same point. And I see, it's two wings on the same bird, but I see the whole thing as a circle, and it meets right in the middle. So the far left and the far right come together. And it leads to the same point, which is fascism, really, and aggression. And it's not pleasant. And everybody's getting played and falling into it. And there's reasons for it, and I'll get into that. And ultimately, there are two things. There are two things that we're up against. Well, there's basically love versus fear. And we saw that a lot over the past few years. 2020, it was about placing people into fear. And by placing people into fear, then they will control people easier. And we're a lot easier to control when we're scared. So this is what's happening. People are frightened, aren't they? And we're easily manipulated. And the powers that be, they know that. It's a game they play. And the thing is, we're just pawns in this game. You look at a chessboard, you've got the pawns, and you've got the royalty as well, haven't you? And the bishops as well. But you've got these levels, if you like, and there are levels. But we are nothing to them in some respects. But they also fear the fact that once we realise who we truly are, and our perceptions, we create our perceptions and create a better world, then their game is over, really. Because if they can't control you, then they've lost you. So they want to keep us in fear. And as I mentioned, when you're born, you're born with love in your heart. You're not born with fear. Probably a little confused. You're just a baby arriving into this world, and you're very vulnerable. But you're not born with anger and hate and everything else, which is fear. And we need to get back to finding out who we truly are, and the only way you can do that is through the self-work, and facing your own shadows and your own demons, if you like, and recognizing who you are and working through those, because we've all got them through the deep programming and the traumas that we face through our lifetime. So I mentioned in the last video, and I showed a bit of it, there was a situation in Leeds. And I mentioned, obviously, the Donald Trump thing. I spoke a lot about. They use events to politicise and to create societal change. 9/11 was the big one for me in my lifetime, and when I want to recognise what they'd done there to create change and create fear and create control. Once you recognise that these people that are so-called in power, and again they're not in power, they're just puppets. You've got to recognise that they're not thinking like we are. They're not the same as we are. They're being used in this game as well to put you in a state of fear. Don't look for these guys as the way out of protection, because they're not there to protect you. They're there to manipulate you, and they have an agenda. And we'll get into the agenda in a moment. So, Sir Keir Starmer of the Trilateral Commission and the World Economic Forum, who has been selected as the Prime Minister of the UK has an agenda. He has a part to play of putting through what I believe is an agenda they've been working on for a very long time. And, you know, if it's 2030 is their target, they're nearly halfway through their plan for a digital prison, if you like. Australia have already announced some kind of social crediting score to use social media.
Ollie, how will it work?
Lila, good morning. Essentially, it will work the same as a passport. Australians forced to submit 100 points of identification, like their driver's licence or passport, when using social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter. Now, police would have access to those social media accounts, and it's all part of a crackdown on online abuse.
And already Keir Starmer and the likes, you know, Yvette Cooper and the likes are pushing for facial recognition.
Announced today that following this meeting, we will establish a national capability across police forces to tackle violent disorder. These thugs are mobile, they move from community to community, and we must have a policing response that can do the same. Shared intelligence, wider deployment of facial recognition technology.
They're pushing for, arrests.
And that's why I say, again, anybody involving themselves in this disorder is going to feel the full force of the law. As I say, 400 arrests, 100 charges, people already in court, and a substantive sentencing by the end of this week.
But they're stirring it in such a way that it antagonises what people class as nationalists. Now, what happens is the so-called nationalists, in fear, look to protect their land, and then the ones that they're classing as they're saying that there's an issue between Muslims and Christians. So let's say the Muslims in Bolton this week feel now that they must protect their area. This has all been stirred by the politicians, which goes higher than that. You know, they're, like I say, they're just puppets. But they're stirring the pot. You know, if you have a jar of red and black ants, they'll do nothing. They're not going to attack each other until someone shakes that jar. Then they'll probably start kicking off. And this is the thing: who's shaking the jar is what we should be asking, really. And they're doing it on purpose because they'll have people, as I mentioned again in the last video, they'll have people begging for digital identification. And again, I think I mentioned in the last video that the migrant situation is, been happening for a considerable time. They've been putting what seem to be fighting man age men into hotels with no women and children. Now, even if they're not, you got a certain side, and again, this is sides. People are choosing sides. So a certain side will be saying, well, they're from the, I've read rumours, I've read these stories. These are from the UN Army to bring in the New World Order and all that kind of stuff. Now, we don't know that. But even if it's not, say it's not that, but what it does create is paranoia. So the paranoia starts, and therefore you get defensive because they create sides, and people will look to protect their own, obviously. it's nature within us. That's why we're easily manipulated. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about Southport. For one, I don't know anyone that was involved. I haven't got first-hand information. I can only go off what we've all been told and what we've all been shown. So I'm my feeling on the matter is something's happened, because these things do happen. You know, as an emotional being, especially when children are involved, that's when you get riled up, and that's understandable, totally understandable. Now, I don't know what happened at that event apart from what I've been reading and what I've been shown and whatever, and it took me a couple of days to hence why I was a bit in two minds about doing this video. You know, when you bring children into things, then it's difficult, isn't it? Anyway, so that there's a nice bait situation there, isn't there, for a kick-off, for a start. You know, someone with a different coloured skin, and not only that, they've not helped themselves in the media, because apparently he's allegedly 17 years of age and they classed him as a boy. Well, you know, sorry, if you're old enough to walk around with a machete and look to murder people, then you're old enough to be named, aren't you? Anyway, so they've not helped themselves by keeping certain things out of the media, and then people are looking for answers. Naturally, looking for answers, and they're angry, naturally, as well. Now, I'm not saying this was a planned event or a staged event, because I don't know. I'm not commenting on that. But if it is an event that's just happened, off the whim kind of thing, this guy's just a lunatic and he's done that without any kind of brainwashing, trauma. I don't know. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think any two humans can harm each other properly without trauma involved and brainwashing, especially little ones. But it creates that melting pot, and people will kick off. And then in Southport, I think it was the following day or 2 days afterwards, there was a bit of a kick-off with, you know, police involved, and all I saw was a bit of a rent-a-mob situation, really. You know, and this does happen, by the way. You know, if you do your research, Antifa and things like that, they are hired to cause mayhem, to cause chaos. Because they will create order out of chaos. So they'll do whatever they need to do to create a mess, effectively, unfortunately. And it works very well, and it's working right now. Just before the Southport incident, there was an incident at Manchester Airport, and they showed what they wanted to show at first. I think, you know, they showed an horrendous situation at Manchester Airport where an Asian man was kicked in the head by a policeman and tasered. But what they didn't show is, leading up to that, before that, was the Asian man kicking off with the police beforehand, and that's why he was tasered. I mean, it's no excuse for kicking anybody in the head, by the way. That's inexcusable. You know, the fact remains. This is where it gets to. We need to remember who we are, right? Because we're not born with this hate. We're not born with this hate at all. And if you can tap into yourself and recognize actually who you truly are, you're not going to hate anyone. Because you're not hate. You're actually love. It's the reactions they want from our traumas and from our programming. And they're getting it. It's a tricky video, this one. And it's not easy to solve at all. They've got this well and truly sus because they've done it many, many times. And it's a terrible situation that will, if it continues with the communities are kicking off with each other, either people will be begging because they're scared of all the mobs that's got, you know, and all the riots and things like that up and down the country. People will beg for the digital ID. They'll beg for a way of tagging and controlling the situation. It's been antagonised by politicians, though, and by the media. The classification of far right, for one.
Listen, if you want to get technical, the actual term, right, if anyone asks you, is far right. We are far right, all right? What the fuck? How's this happening? Have I caught this? Is far right contagious? Is that what it is? Have I caught far rightness? Have you given it to me, mate? Have I? Because, fuck, I'll tell you something now. Calm down, listen. The meaning of far right's changed. It's like the net's widened and we've kind of slipped in it. You know what I mean? It's been all over TV. Keir Starmer's been going on about it. You missed it, mate. It used to be believing that your race was superior to others. Do you know what I mean? It was like a radical and extreme view on minorities, like Hitler and the Nazis and all that. Mate, I thought it was a specific view that ethnic, racial or religious groups should stay separate based on the belief that the interests of one's own group should be prioritised. Yeah, I thought the same, mate, but that's old school right-wing racism.
You've just got people confused and scared. A leader, who Keir Starmer's supposed to be, instead of making threats, because that's what he's been doing, would try and unite and bring peace to the situation. But these people don't want peace. They don't want that. Look at Ukraine. They don't want peace. They want more. And the problem is, your reactions are giving them what they want. You're playing their game. We have to find a way of not playing. I do not consent was one of my favourite phrases over 2020, 2021, etc. I don't consent to digital identification. I don't consent to being tagged. It's a really tricky situation. You know, and then they mentioned the prisons as well, that this, you know, they're threatening with the prisons. Now, it was not that long ago, actually, Keir Starmer announced that they're going to be releasing a load of prisoners because there's not enough room. But again, it's all fear tactic and stirring the pot. And they're threatening the nationalist types rather than, it seems like, the Muslims. There's reports on Sky News where they're reporting on white men rioting. And then you've got Muslims behind with weapons walking past. Both sides are getting played. The media people are getting played. The police are getting played. We're all getting played.
Look at the state of them. Who caused this? You can see yourself. They've marched them down from St. George's, all the shit houses. Look at the anger, there was no trouble here, nothing. Look at it now, you can see with your own eyes. You shithouse traitors. All you left-wing traitors. You can see now with your own eyes. It's not Sky News or BBC. Look at it. They've marched them down from St George's Hall, and look what they've caused.
And it's for their agenda. And it's working really, really well. I haven't got an answer to how this stops right now. I'm sure it will do. But I know one thing that I will be doing is I'm going to be looking at myself. I can only work on myself and inspire my children and, you know, anybody else that's close to me. You know, I just need to be a better person all the time. I always need to look at myself and become better, because we make mistakes through my traumas, through my experiences, through whatever. I've been reactionary many, many times. And I think if more people did that, the world would be better. If we could remember truly who we are, the world would be better. Order out of chaos. Order out of chaos. That's what it is. Let's not give them what they want. Let's give them the opposite. Let's give them unity. Imagine this. If they couldn't control you through fear, it's game over, innit, for them.
And I can only just like to say to the management here that we're very, very sorry of what has happened here today. As many of you have seen what has happened, and that is not a true reflection of who we are as a community. And to you, my friend, I know you was in the pub and it must have been horrifying. But again, I'd like to apologise on our behalf.
Frightening, you don't have to apologise for everybody. It's only a small minority on everybody's side. Everybody's side. You don't have to apologise for the people that are bad. Like I don't have to apologise for the idiots.
And there's here's my hand, and here's my heart. And hopefully we can put this down as a bad experience. And this is a message going out to people who are coming out to protest. Brothers, if your intention is not clear, stay at home.
One more thing. Come closer.
We are one. That's what unifies us.
I love you all. Everyone here.
But what we can do is work together better and become better as individuals. And through that, we become better collectively. At the moment, I don't have any other answers but that. But we are better than what they are making us to be. We are. Here's hoping that things calm down soon, because we're better.